Good evening. I was recently asked to help out with a newly formed research group. This is a group specializing in Bigfoot, Dogman, and other paranormal activity, UFOs, ghosts, all sorts of things, but primarily focusing on Bigfoot and Dogman in the desert regions of Southern California. It is the High Desert Crypto Group. And Edgar, who set it up, is a really nice guy. I've known him for a couple years now, off and on. He's seen me speak at a couple conferences, and we've had a number of long conversations. And he asked me to kind of put together a tryout expedition, kind of a get to know you, um, kind of test the waters, see who would show up. So a couple of people showed up, and they decided where we wanted to go. So I said, well, I don't know many hot spots out in the desert. You guys live in the desert. But if you just want to get some practice in a nice spot, we went up to Idlewild, California. And Idlewild is a drinking town with an art problem. It's a very cool little community up there. Lots of shops, lots of restaurants. Like I said, they have an art school, lots of things to do up there. There's no skiing though, so it generally stays a lot quieter than, say, Big Bear or Arrowhead or Wrightwood. So I decided to lead them to the Black Mountain area, which is a trail leading up a mountain named Black Mountain, also known as Fuller Ridge, and the very top of it dumps you out on the Pacific Crest Trail. And along this dirt road going on up, there are several campgrounds that are pretty much always closed no matter what. And historically, when these things have been opened in the past, although I don't think I've ever seen them opened, I have heard of quite a few Bigfoot encounters, missing people, strange noises, hunters reporting strange things. A few locals have told me that there is a clan of Bigfoots up here at the Black Mountain area. So yeah, we decided to go up the trail, and about halfway up, the gate was locked. So we kind of just found an old area that was closed off and decided to take a look around. I was asked to do a little briefing, so we talked about equipment, we talked about general mindset, things we're looking for, and then we went and walked around for a few hours in the woods, did some filming, looked at tree breaks and some tracks, water sources, food sources. Generally got to know each other. Obviously, there was a lot more going on than was filmed, but please enjoy this little outing with us, and take care, folks. So, just a quick few minutes on gear and stuff. I've got, like I said, a whole closet full of crap, and depends on how many people I'm going. If I'm going during the day or wintertime. Stuff that I always take, no matter if it's broad daylight, is I always take a flashlight. You never know when you're going to have a breakdown or something and you're out here unintentionally. I always bring gloves. These are like a hybrid work cold weather glove. They just stay in the glove box, basic stuff like that. I do a lot of my filming on my iPhone because they have really good cameras on them these days, and it's less crap I got to carry. So selfie stick, I don't do the whole selfie thing with it, but it's a great way to hold a camera and look at yourself or film at the same time, but freeing up a hand so you're not trying to do both hands, kind of a thing. This I always keep in there as kind of a joke. It's a Sasquatch field drive. This one was actually signed by Jeff Meldrum. So Dr. Jeff Meldrum, the Bigfoot guy. This is great if you got somebody who's going with you who's not familiar with Bigfoot, and you're like, here, read this on the way in. And it's actually tells you quite a bit about mid-tarsal breaks and Sasquatch anatomy and feet and how to identify stuff, and kind of a fun little guide. So I always keep that in there just because. So when you talk about filming, one of the main things I use a lot, because they're waterproof, they're durable, they're cheap, and they're high definition, are GoPro cameras. The only main downfall, there's two main downfalls to a GoPro. This thing's completely waterproof, and the picture will flip, so you can stick it into a pond if you wanted to, the rain. There's a million mounts, suction cups and head mounts. You can stick them on cars or drones or whatever. The only thing that sucks is the battery lives aren't that great. So you either got to buy other batteries or charge it in your car, or always be aware of it. And the other thing is they don't zoom. They do a super wide angle lens, that gets a lot of stuff, and it's super great high definition. They're beautiful, but they don't zoom. So this is great in the rain, you're in the snow, you're on a boat, like when I'm going whale watching and stuff. This is the camera I take, because you can get right by the water. This particular one's a floating handle too, So if you're really like going through the bushes or something, this is, you're not going to lose your phone.
Right.
Kind of a great idea. They're $300 or $400, which is expensive, but
if it fell off or got lost or something, you're not the end of the world. It's not a $1,500 or $2,000 camera,
Right.
you know. And you can find them used. There's a bunch of other knockoff like GoPros too. They're pretty simple to use. You can set it up, which I always recommend. Is there's an on button, and then you can go through the menu and turn it on. It has a quick start feature where I hit that red button and it just turns on and starts recording. Which is if you're out driving in cars or walking along and you hear something, you just hit it, and like 2 or 3 seconds later, it's on and recording. And then when you're done, you can just turn it off. So you're not hunting through menus and holding down buttons. It's a quick go kind of a thing.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. So these are handy. I've also got a gimbal for it, which stabilizes it. There's a little motors and it stabilizes it, so you get that. You can pan and tilt, and you can pan and tilt the GoPro and all that, and it's super smooth. But the problem is with the gimbal, this is a cheap one. This is cheap, like $100 one. You can hear the motors going, so there's a humming noise. So it's good for B-roll footage, like if you're doing filming or doing like a production and you just want super smooth
background
video or something. But as far as you're actually trying to use it in the field, I didn't know that till after I bought it. So it's a little limited. A million chargers and everything else. You got to have all your plugs because everything takes an effing different plug, you know. I always carry tape, tools, batteries, my Sasquatch multi-tool.
You got it, huh?
I got one.
Yeah.
You
those
got
are
that.
cool.
You got that in
Little,
got that from Santa one year.
little bungee cords. And the one thing I didn't bring, which I almost always bring, is first aid kit, blowout kit with tourniquets and everything in there.
Yeah, snake bite kit probably.
Yeah. Binoculars. This is a fairly cheap pair of binoculars, but they work just fine. It's always a compromise doing a lot of field work of buying nice enough gear, but if your $1,000, $800 binoculars get smacked by a rock, or you leave them somewhere, or someone borrows them and you don't see them again, or it's always kind of a compromise. Lots of rags, microfiber for cleaning lenses, chargers, headlamps. They got multiple headlamps, little clamp mounts and things for the GoPro, extra SD cards. These things always take SD cards. And extra batteries, extra little batteries in here. This is a little more paranormal related, but it's a digital recorder for sound. You can leave this on a rock or something like that, or set it out at night if you just want audio only. I don't have it with me now. I have it somewhere.
That's what the Ron Moorhead people did, and with
Like,
older equipment.
He did it
too.
in the 70s where it was the big tape-to-tape reel deal. So it's
Yeah.
analog is actually kind of better in some ways.
Right.
So there's a little bit less susceptible to interference, like all the digital stuff. But
Are you getting all this in tape?
I hope so.
Okay.
We're recording.
Okay.
Thought I was.
It's good for your
If you're gonna leave it on tape, if I may, but you're not. Did you bring? You said something about the DNA kit.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were.
Yeah.
Right now he's talking tools.
Yeah. Always bring tape measures because people always put their foot or something.
Yeah.
I had a little. It was like a 8-inch little tape measure ruler deal that I had, but I don't know. I just carry this old school. It was my grandpa's one, just for tracks and everything else, for scale, so that way you know
That's a
directly.
big pet peeve of mine. Nobody carries a $1 tape measure
Tape measure.
ever. They just put pencils.
Well, this is kind of the mini crown jewel of the collection. This is a Psionics Aurora. It's one of the cheaper night vision cameras, but it actually does really, really well. They're full spectrum, so it's kind of color night vision. We were watching those paranormal ghost hunter shows, and they're like, turn on the full spectrum camera. All it is it's just like one of these, and this has a daytime setting, a twilight setting, and a full night vision setting. And it's probably the equivalent to like a Gen 2 night vision. It's actually very clear. You can see pretty far. You can zoom with it. It also does daylight now. The reason why you could, in theory, just use this for all your daylight stuff too, but it only does 720p versus a GoPro or an iPhone will do full 1080p high definition.
Right.
Because of its capabilities, 720 still looks good, but this is kind of great at night. This is also a waterproof little unit you can set on there. And
So how much does one of those run you?
this was $399, $400. You can find them on sale occasionally.
Okay.
This is a base model. They have going all the way up to $1,000. And you can actually, this is good enough to where you could walk around with it and like actually use it to navigate it. They even sell helmet mounts, and the image will flip to where you can mount it like this and use it almost like a military night vision.
Oh, wow.
Or people get 2 of them or whatever. They have mounts where you can mount them to a rifle or mount them to like a car or something, whatever. But this was actually turned out to be really cool, very useful. It takes still pictures and video, and you hook it to your Wi-Fi, and you can just upload it right to an iPad or a computer right over the air, or you can take the little SIM card out. But very cool. I got a bunch of extra batteries for it. Kind of fun to play around with. The only thing though is if it's a moonless night, a dark night, you need a IR illuminator. This is a flashlight you don't really see with your naked eye.
Right.
And at night in the dark, you can see the very, very faintest little tiny bit of red coming out of here. But at night, it's like a huge bright spotlight. And this is an adjustable one. Looks kind of inappropriate, but it goes from a really wide zoom to like a spotlight. So if you're on a porch or something up high, you can really dial in that spot like 100 yards away and illuminate something. Or
What
so
is that called again?
it's a Psionics Aurora.
No, the
Yeah,
Oh,
ultraviolet light flashlight.
Yeah, it's an
Oh, okay.
IR illuminator. It's the infrared spectrum the human eye can't see,
okay.
but cameras pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
So the naked eye, it looks dark.
Yeah.
Through the camera, it amplifies the light, and this is basically introducing artificial
So
light.
it has some.
But a lot of deer and other creatures that have good night vision can see this. We can't. Humans have actually pretty poor night vision. So it's kind of a give or take. If you can always use this passively to where you're not shining a big light out there, it's a plus, like on a night with a good moon or something like that. But if something's out in the yard and you can kind of see it out there, you can throw this thing on and you can spot it with this. As you can see going around, this is carrying a lot. You know, people have, there's different mounts and there's cameras that have different attachments, and you can get really out there with it. They have little helmet mount IR illuminators.
You
And,
carry one, I'll carry the
There's
other.
I have an XF100. It's a camera. It's a reporter's camera. The problem with it, and it does the same thing as that, but it's bulky.
yeah,
That's the problem, and that's sleek.
Those
Yeah.
are the
yeah. This guy, I usually just run it on this little tiny mini tripod, because I can hold it like this, and then I've got somewhere that I can just set it down.
Right.
You know, just little crap like this you end up with. Like I said, binoculars. I've got 4 or 5 of these trail cameras. Trail cameras have very limited success when it comes to Bigfoot. How many times, if you spent a lot of time, I've spent years and years looking at them, and there's the deer or the bear looking right at the camera. And even though you can't see it with the naked eye, it's just like I was saying with the IR illuminator. A lot of critters can see in that spectrum, we just can't.
Right.
So I think to them, the Sasquatch, and probably to a dogman and a lot of other paranormal creatures, it would be like you turning on a really super bright regular flashlight in the light. Everything from miles away is going to see it. We can't see it, but I think they can. And these
And they
trail
can avoid
cameras
it.
have those same
Right.
type of lights. They have a little laser projectors that is the motion sensor, and then they have a camera, and they have all the other sensors and things, and there's clicking and whirling and whizzing and stuff, which is why I think they don't, I don't know they specifically know what a picture is, but I think they know, hey, I don't know what that thing
Right,
is.
that's thorn.
Yeah. So
Do you think it has a weird smell to them too?
probably. I mean, yeah, who knows? But trail cameras are kind of cool.
Yeah. It's got batteries.
You know, people, it's not impossible, but people can get pictures of Bigfoot on them. Like I said, if they're more of a nuisance and they're coming by your front door or your backyard, put those things all over the place, and they'll stay out of there.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, the DNA collection kit, my mom put together for me. She worked in the medical field for many years, and in anthropology, and she's into Bigfooting and all that stuff. So there's plastic bags in here for like scat or something maybe a little more gross. But when it comes to collecting hair, you really don't want to put hair in a plastic bag. You want to put it in an envelope. Plastic can degrade a hair sample. So if you find a specific hair, like on a barbed wire fence or stuck to a tree, there's a procedure. You use hand sanitizing wipes. You take your tweezers and you sterilize them. You wear a mask, which when we put this together 4 or 5 years ago, that was like, oh my God, a mask. You know, now everybody's got them all over the place. Also other test tube type things if you want to take like a stool sample or some kind of a good whatever,
Yeah.
you know, a flesh sample, something, different tubes. These are sterile gloves. They're completely sterile. So you'd sanitize your hands, put these on. You'd use the sterilizing wipes to sterilize Q-tips or the tweezers. And then you can take that and put it in your envelope.
Right.
So everything's sterile. Then you can send your sample into a lab or wherever, get stuff looked at. And that's just kind of the things that are in here.
Do you know
Sharpie, so you can label when and where, all that kind of stuff.
Do you know, Matt, how much right now a DNA test could cost?
I don't know a DNA test specifically. I do know for 80 or $100 you can have an analyzation, which is where they take that hair follicle and compare it to human, rabbit, artificial, deer, moss on a tree. They were like an identification, you know, 80, 90, $100 or
Okay.
something like
Not
that.
bad.
As far as a DNA test, that's probably quite a bit more money. And I usually always carry this with me, and I almost never use it. I always, like in the areas where I found hair samples, I also see cows, you know, or deer and everything else. And most of the time when you send a sample in to be analyzed, it comes back as inconclusive anyway, because they compare it to known species. And if it's an unknown species, they're not going to know what it is.
Right.
So it's one of those things where it's a good thing to have depending on how technical you want to get with all this. But I don't know. That's more or less my experience.
Any particular universities you work with, or
Nope. Not really, no.
Fair
I'm
enough.
kind of my own independent person when it comes to this stuff. Like I said, I've got a myriad of other trail cameras. Oh, the other thing, that's what I was going to say. Since the GoPro doesn't zoom, I usually pair that with a regular digital camera that zooms. This one's got a pretty good zoom. It's a point and shoot. It's older, but it's got a good zoom.
Right.
So if I would be on the camera, my partner or buddy, I'd give him the still. And this also records video, but not as well. So if I'm filming something from a distance going through there, I could have it on capture on HD film, and he could be zooming in, taking
Pictures.
taking still shots. You know, does an optical zoom, and then it goes to like a digital zoom and everything like that. So so pairing a recording video, especially a GoPro with a still camera, I think is a good way to go. If you have 3 people, you put someone on binoculars, you put someone on this. It's really great if one person can record. If you're in 2-man groups, 2 or 3-man groups, have one person be primary tracker, who's looking at the ground, looking for wet spots, looking for disturbances, broken tree branches, looking up in trees, looking for oddities. He's not worried about filming. He's not worried about any of that kind of stuff. He's just he's just tracking.
Right.
You have somebody else who's filming, so he's worried about keeping it steady and getting stuff in. Because I'm still guilty of it. The biggest thing you want to do is like, oh, look over here, and you're making everybody sick.
Yeah.
You got to, you know, slow yourself down and really take it in.
Yeah.
Then if you pair somebody with a still camera, you know, it's like 2 or 3 people. I'd say 4 people. 3 or 4 people is probably the max.
Right.
You know. But this is just some of the equipment I use and kind of how I do it. Edgar, is there something you wanted to talk about?
Well,
or add?
you've covered. You've have almost pretty much everything that I have. The only thing that's different with me is that I do a lot of like usually with the equipment. Like if you're close to the car,
You can just go back.
yeah,
Like I usually leave all the DNA collection kit and a lot of that stuff. Like I don't even bring water. Most of the trails I go on are places I've been to a bunch of times. And I park the truck. I walk half mile in, set up my trail camera, do my filming, do my investigating, and leave the hardcore stuff back at the truck.
right. And
You know.
I usually have to carry everything with me because I'll go a whole 10 miles in. I leave my car and then I go in where people can't go and there's no trails. So I'm not sure, and I'm sure Matt has these too. So I take walkie-talkies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know. Let me just put some.
I'm usually by myself, or the other guy is standing right next to me, so I don't have a lot of need for that. But if we're doing a base camp type thing, or work at my father-in-law's place where there's a property like a porch or something, and someone's going out at night, you can keep in contact with like kind of like a home base. I have them. Most of the stuff I do, I just don't need them because I'm right there.
Yeah, because I have the only thing I don't have that he has is the DNA kit. and that nifty little camera. This, right? Compass. And this is, well, I have several of these. I just brought the small one, but you want to have these because like north is there, but if you just go 10 miles just a little bit in an angle, you're going to end up somewhere else. So this one actually you can point at things and go exactly where you want to go. So that's why I have these. This is awesome. This actually, with this, I was able to hear something in Utah. These are basic. I use these in courts to listen. Actually, this is for the hearing impaired, but it's a really cheap thing. It's like 15 bucks. They, if you see the Bigfooters, they have these big antennas, and they're like thousands of dollars. Like
the parabolic dishes.
right?
Yeah.
They're like $2,000, some of them. But I don't have $2,000 to spend on that. And besides, they're bulky, so when you're going out like 10 miles, you can't carry that unless you have a partner at scalp you. But this is awesome because you can hear really far, and it's just like 15 bucks. It's for the hearing, and at night, any little crack, you can hear it. So it's awesome. It's cheap. And
What is that called?
that's just a sound amplifier.
Oh.
Okay. One more thing here. Give me a second. So this is what I have, and let me tell you what this is. So of course you always have a whistle when you go hiking, right? But I have this, and I've heard in a show, in a Dogman show, I don't know, because I'm always afraid of the Dogman and run into a Dogman, but this is a dog whistle, and supposedly it hurts their ears, just like big dogs.
Can I hear it?
But I don't know. That's something I carry. Okay, so like I said, because I have a night vision camera. It's too heavy. There's an app on the phones that have night vision.
You can get a little plug. It plugs even into your phone.
This is
Oh,
yeah.
one of those guys. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
so I have a cell phone just for this, but this is thermal.
Oh, thermal vision. Yeah.
Yeah, thermal vision. So this one you get the app, you connect it here, and thermal. It's like 200 bucks, 150 I think there, and it really works. I've ran into cougars with this. You can see them at night. You just see the little. They're just, the only problem with this, and that's why I want to get one of those, is that the battery life. This will last you like an hour. It just sucks up all the battery from the cell phone. So
I don't have a thermal. A friend of mine's got a really high dollar military grade thermal that I borrow occasionally. I concur with him. I've got like my hunting bag where it's a little smaller than that, but it's a camouflage bag. I've got my fire starting stuff, a compass, a more basic boo-boo first aid kit, some emergency water, stuff that if I'm going way out in the boondocks or stuff like that. Pretty much like the same kind of, if you get stuck overnight or hurt or something like that.
yeah.
So then a backup battery would be a good idea.
Yes.
Because I've got cell phone batteries that'll charge that thing over 5 times.
Right, and that's the other thing. I have
A little power bank. I forgot to bring it. I've got one of those power banks.
yes,
And you can charge all your phones off of it.
yes, like that's exactly my next one, which is one of these babies, because you need them, at least one power bank. Then something I have and that's been very useful for me. Of course, I have everything else. You're not going to believe this, but I've tried this, and these are
Duck
basic.
call?
Well, it's not a duck call. It's this one's cottontail, but there's different calls.
Wounded rabbit.
Wait, hold on. And then it's a distress call. So, and you know what calls this? Coyotes. We get them all the time.
Okay, I'll tell you a story about that. Remember on my channel a while back, it was a Dogman encounter in what's the highway? Angeles Crest Highway.
Angeles Crest Highway.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
138.
and we went and did a follow-up investigation, and when we went to all the little turnoffs around Angeles Crest, we were blowing. A friend of mine had that wounded rabbit call,
No kidding.
and every little turnoff off the side of the highway, he'd blow that thing. All the trees started hooting at us because
What?
it got all the owls, all the Twitter. It'd be like, it'd be like every
go
tree had a.
bunny.
You didn't
Let's go
realize
bunny
it.
hunting.
There's so many freaking owls. We didn't. It was like every tree you'd see the tree shaking a little bit or something coming over here. We're like every tree had a freaking owl in it because every time we blew that wounded rabbit noise, all the owls were going nuts up there.
That's crazy. I never had owls, just coyotes.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what their main. I mean, predator, you got to be careful what you're calling in.
Well, I have a few of those. I have for deer, and they come running, and then they see that you're not a deer, and they just run out the other side. So
wounded fawn. It's like they're even the boys. It's reaction.
Right.
If there's a wounded fawn, they go see what's going on.
Right. So that's the only thing I didn't bring because were the trail cams, and my camera, which is a reporter camera, but it has 1080p and it records for hours and has good battery life, but it's just too bulky. So I'll take it if we're gonna be close to the car, but if we're gonna go on hiking, then I have to take all of the small stuff. One thing that I have, these little loom cubes. I just recently went to the Amazons and I recorded inside a cave.
Oh, exactly.
And these little things work really well because if you can record with your regular camera, but you need light, right? These have really good light. For some reason, the iPhones really pick up this light, and it just has great illumination. So, and this one's lasts for hours. It's a little loom cube. They're like $60. They're not expensive.
One of my all-time favorite is, there's a lot of knockoffs of these, but this is a real Streamlight, the brand, and this is a dual fuel. It'll take either the 123, the Surefire type batteries, and you get 350 lumens on its brightest setting or 15 lumens on its low.
Wow.
So 15 lumens is great for your administrative task and everything else, but 350 lumens, it'll light up this whole hillside. It's good for about 100 yards.
Wow.
And it's small, it's lightweight, but not only does it take those 123 specialty batteries, if you're stuck, you can just dump a regular AA in here.
Wow.
And it's not quite as bright. It's like 125 lumens, but at least it'll still work.
Wow.
So it's like a dual fuel, and you see it's got the funny clip on it. That clip is so you can clip it onto your hat.
Oh, nice.
So you can put it on the low setting and have an impromptu headlamp kind of a deal, but then it'll also still clip in your pocket. It's bright enough to be like a tactical flashlight. And there's a lot of knockoffs of these, but the batteries, the bulbs go out. This is, you pay 50 or 60 bucks versus 20 or 30, and you get one that'll basically last you a lifetime. They're lightweight. They're not so expensive. Once again, if you lost it or something, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been.
What's the brand? Let me see. Let me take a picture of that.
Streamlight. You
Wow.
just find them on Amazon. They make big ones, little ones. There's a 2-cell version of these. But yeah, the dual fuel, it'll do like a low, you can't even see it, but it'll do like a low setting, and then you double tap it and it'll do like a bright setting. So you can just low, double again, high, and it's lightweight. I take it everywhere. So
Probably use
Awesome.
that to scare something off if you didn't
yeah,
notice,
well,
too.
Well, and the only thing that you probably didn't mention is I have a lot of knives.
I carry a pocket knife with me everywhere. Usually at camp or in the truck, I usually have something big. I don't know why. In case I got to get all Boy Scout or something.
I carry a lot of knives because one of the most useful things that I've seen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the reason I carry knives is because I figure if I run out of, because I carry a gun when I go deep into the forest, but if I run out of bullets for any reason, I'm gonna die.
yeah. You want
A warrior is
find
death,
it.
you know?
Standing.
Huh?
Last man.
Yeah, that's and they have these fire starters. What is it called? The Blackbeard. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
And those are great, but I use this because I have been where we're trying to start fires and it's raining so much that this is the only thing that will start a fire.
To strike. Yeah.
The only thing. So that I always carry in my backpack. I just put it. But other than what Matt mentioned, that's the only thing. So one thing is that it depends on where you're going to go. Are you going deep, or are you going to have your car close? That's
what
the
kind
thing.
of firearm do you take? Like a handgun, or you take a?
Well, here's the deal. So I've talked to some people, hunters, because I was between the 357, the 44. Why? Because I go up north and there's big bears, and I mean you could take a handgun, and as if it's a black bear, but if it's like, for example, in the Patterson-Gimlin site, before I went, what's his name, David Paulides, he told me that the bears there are so big that they're like, not like grizzly bears, but they're big brown bears. He said, don't take anything smaller than 357. That's what he recommended. So, yeah. So I bought a 44 because my dream is to go to Alaska someday. So I might as well have it. But usually just with a pistol, I think you have a 45, right?
I've got
You got everything, right?
I've got a bunch of guns. I have a 44, and I carried it for years.
It's heavy though.
I've got a permit. I've got my concealed weapons permit, so I can carry anywhere in the state of California with a few exceptions.
Right.
That's the only thing. The 44 is big. It's
Mhm.
heavy. You
Too
only
heavy,
get 5 or 6 shots.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually end up carrying, like today I'm carrying my Glock, and it's got
This is a
9mm, but I carry, 17 rounds. Those are all copper, deep penetrating ammo. 1-inch chambers. That's 18 rounds. I got another magazine. I figure if I have to defend myself against bear, Bigfoot, anything else, it's going to be headshots, dumping rounds, getting into them. When I go to the property or if I'm camping, usually I keep a shotgun or a rifle or something, a bigger gun back at camp.
Right.
Now, as far as bears, do you guys carry bear spray at all?
I have. I got a can at home. I didn't bring it with me. I always tell people that not really pepper spray, but bear spray, which is, Big Brother pepper spray, especially for people who aren't comfortable with firearms or can't own firearms or just don't want to get into it, or firearms are expensive. A can of bear spray is $40-$50, and anything on 2 or 4 legs will drive off something.
Well, yeah, because if you're running a homeless
Yeah,
or
bear
anything
spray's
like
good.
that too, you can
Yeah.
from a distance.
But bear spray is, it's maybe from like here to that rock effective.
Yeah.
You can get yourself. It's not perfect. It's better than nothing, But I would say if you have a super bright, blindingly bright flashlight and a can of bear spray, you're better. You're better off than nothing, because you can identify it and you can dump bear spray on it and run away.
Right.
Back up, dump and spray on it.
So, especially with the black bears, they're a little easier to scare off if you have like spray or whatever. I think the gun for me would be for people or mountain lions.
And that's one thing primarily from carrying a gun in the woods is how many times where I thought I was in a dark, desolate place and I come across a homeless guy or people doing drugs. It happens, and you don't know what, especially when I'm by myself carrying camera equipment and everything else. I'm like, like just having some means of defense is a good thing. So
Yeah, I carry firearms.
some bigger tracks in here. So you see smaller tracks that look like it could be deer or something, and then there's bigger, look like paw prints almost. Like this looks like front paw here, and then this looks like back paw of something.
Wait a minute.
Like-
Big enough for a bear, that could be a kitty.
Well, it could be a mountain lion or a small bear. And you see other little tracks of like something else coming through here. I think this little creek, little water source is a
Oh yeah.
popular spot. And a bear will tear apart these logs, obviously looking for grubs and things. And these acorn stashes I'm seeing everywhere from squirrels and bears, and I imagine Bigfoot would dig up a squirrel stash and get to their nuts. Pretty deep little pool here, I mean, relatively.
Oh, this is good. This is good water.
I mean, this is right off the road too, and you can see how going 10 miles in like you do is excellent, and you can get some really great stuff. But you don't necessarily have to kill yourself getting out there to find interesting little spots like this. And you can tell there's a whole game trail that goes right along the side here.
In the Patterson Gimlin side, you could just park your car and just stay there where you park your car.
Oh yeah.
Because that place is so wild that you don't have to. There's nobody there anyway. Nobody goes. That's a spooky place.
I've never been, but I hear you can see all sorts of tracks and things on the other side there. Little tracks, bigger tracks.
That's a little game trail, right?
There's a game trail there. There's a game trail going across this creek. I like here because a lot of times in the Sierras where we are, it's open pasture land, BLM land, national forest, and there's cows. So you're dealing with cow prints and cow shit. And here, not having that is nice. As you can see, all the little deer and paw prints going through there. Some bigger things. Also, don't forget to look up.
I know.
You know.
They might be looking down at you.
I look up more than I look down. You know that about me.
You're birding.
Well, having a birder around is great because you know how many times there's a strange sound and you assume it's a bird, or Bigfoot have known to do really poor bird impressions. Like an 800-pound owl, you hear, ooh, ooh, ooh. And you're like, whoa, God, how big was that owl? And it's really just a signal Kind of like, you know, the Native Americans used to do.
There are some deep pools here.
Surprisingly,
There's a lot
yeah.
of opportunity for water. Sure.
I'm sure in certain spots you might find crayfish too or something. I don't know.
That's what I'm looking for.
Frogs. There are a lot of frogs up here certain times of year. And I don't just mean that as I'm going to fart and blame a frog. So
That's a good snack. That's a good big Bigfoot snack.
that red tree is manzanita. That stuff. Deer love manzanita, and they also have the highest BTU burn rate of any bush in the. Their sap is very highly flammable.
It's good for.
It's really pretty. And you can tell that that creek there is fed by an even little offshoot branch here.
Make sure you take random pictures just around.
That almost looks like people track.
Okay, here's a wash.
Yeah.
Washes.
Then those look like coyote or doog. A dog. Bigger ruts and stuff. Perfect little Christmas tree farm in here. Oh, here's a big wash. So it happens, I'm looking at filming and I'm tripping over stuff. Still a touch of water over here too. That's the wind. You can see more little tracks in here. Something bigger. Something real big. That was a little culvert there. It's always great when you can park next to a creek or a wash because you can just follow it and it's an easy way back. Ah, that looks like the rear paw on a that looks like a rear paw. And toes.
Right. Big toe.
Like four digits like that.
Big toe.
I wonder what that is.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
A lot of times too is the back track will hit the front track and you'll get crossover.
Right.
Yeah. But that's pretty defined toes there.
Yeah.
The other thing too is you could get like a partial where it's just the front part of a foot, you know, pushing off. Tell bears and things over the years tear these apart.
We're not really on a hiking trip today, so that's good.
That's what he was saying. This is not a meet and greet.
Yeah.
This is just a practice session, meet people, talk about it.
Well, I'm really glad to meet both of you. Mark.
This has definitely been, you know, something that he's been really interested in since the day I met him. It was one of our first vacations.
Wait. How long ago did you meet him?
We've been together since 2013.
Oh,
It's a while now.
that's a good time.
And we went on one of our first vacations. We actually, we ended up in the Sierra Nevadas, and he's like, let's go to Red's Meadow. So I have pictures of him out there, you know, doing a little block to the tree. And
My wife generally doesn't go with me because she's like, well, if you get eaten, someone's got to take care of the kids. So
well, someone's got to take care of the dogs in our case, but I don't know if I'll be doing the 2 o'clock in the morning stuff unless I can stay back at the camper. We'll see.
Hey guys, why don't you come check out over here when you get a chance?
Sorry.
Little Doggy Tracks.
Well, thank you, Matt, for sharing your knowledge.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
Just today, you gave me some really good ideas. You know what?
I'm enjoying the personal
Well,
attention.
it's hard to like my friend Bill. He's my hardcore. He's my buddy, and he didn't come here on my Bill.
Yeah, someone had it. I saw that. That's not what I wanted to show you, but these spots like this, I always get kind of not creeped out, but always kind of get, like, always kind of catch my attention. Is these hillsides, because there's great visibility, the rock outcroppings because they don't leave tracks, kind of mixed with the oak trees and everything. These are always just kind of, like, as a kid I would have loved this, you know, but these are always just kind of cool areas I think to check out and keep an eye out for, especially for mountain lions and everything else too.
I know some places like this in Crestline.
Yeah, oh, they're all over the Southern California mountains. But yeah, I mean, we're 100 yards from the car and there's already some kind of neat, interesting stuff. So it's kind of like Bigfooting. If you want to go back real far, you can go out at night. But if you're...
What was that one like we went to? Trinity Lake?
It's off the highway 299. I'll tell you, man. This thing started. This place gets 3 times creepier.
Oh, yeah. Well, I haven't checked out this specific spot before, but this would be one of the areas where, like, if we stayed the night, like, hey, let's go to that first turnoff up Black Mountain and go look at that rock outcropping. Night vision and checking everything out. I mean, look at all the rocks in there and everything. So many places to hide. Yeah, there's so many places to hide and close to a water source, especially the prey. This would be a great area.
You don't have to go looking for the prey. The prey comes in to them.
Yeah, and they have water, which you got to think a big critter is going to need a lot of water. Gallons, actually.
You know, you were one of the pictures that I heard that you said something really, really interesting. Is that you would just put a tank of water in the middle, just set it out. And you're right. There's places where there's no water. They can smell the water. I don't know how they do it. And you just leave it out there.
One of the fire roads where I had my encounter on is also for cows, a lot of pasture. So there's salt licks and troughs, water troughs. And I've said, I mean, it seems like it would be a prime area because there's tons of deer and everything else out there as well. Our friends here aren't...
Let's see. What is this?
A little indentation. Something might have gone through there.
Yeah.
It almost looks like a bear. Really deteriorated bear. Something else over here. It's funny, you can see it. The camera doesn't always pick it up as well.
Yeah, cameras sometimes do, though.
Sometimes they pick it up better, but most of the time
I
they don't. They kind of washes
I have
out.
a video that I want you to check out. Well, you probably get videos all the time of the Patterson-Gimlin area. There's a big footprint, but it's an inclination of grass. Oh, that's the other thing. Do you carry casts sometimes?
I have this stuff. I almost never take it.
It's so heavy.
Well, that in the Sierras and areas like this, it's so dry that you rarely get the good kind of mud that dried hard and would make a good cast. It's mostly indentations and sand.
I got one in grass.
Really?
Yeah, it was an inclination. I didn't know how to do it. With an inclination on grass, I knew it was a plant, but I couldn't get it. It was huge, but I just couldn't get it was impossible. But I did get it on video.
See, this is the other thing too about meeting during the day is Mark and Heidi are very nice and interested, but they're not super mobile. Like, they didn't really want to hike up here. I know she said she's at back. Well, it's fine. Everybody has disabilities and problems. So it's quite, when you get a group, you kind of know people's limitations.
Right.
You know, someone who would stay back,
Right.
and people who would go
Which
forward.
is cool because
Yeah.
we need people for base camp. And if everybody wants to go out and party out there.
Well, I was just saying, you know, it's not negative or positive.
No.
It's just you just have different people with different sets.
now, Bill and I, we're the guys that go risk hard. We'll go to the farthest places of the earth. And we'll go at night.
There he is. There's Sasquatch. Oh. I'm somewhere in the middle. Depends on the area. There's areas where I know I can stand on the porch of the cabin and they'll come right to me because we're the only thing around. And there's other times where I'm like, hey, we got to get out there.
Right.
Not that I can call them in, but just barbecuing on the porch in the middle of the house that's kind of in the middle of nowhere, you know.
Doing that too.
They'll come right to you.
I'm not very fond of the hiking thing, but I mean I do it because
Like, I honestly don't like camping in a tent, but I'll do it if I'm hunting or doing this, you know.
I'll do all of that.
Funny, I hated it as a kid, but now that I'm older,
How'd you get up here so fast?
part mountain goat.
That's why I bought a travel trailer.
Yeah, you kind of get the best of both
Air
worlds.
conditioning and a microwave.
Yeah. Well, we tent camped when I was a kid, and it was miserable.
Yeah, I did that as a kid.
Then we bought a tent trailer, a pop-up trailer,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh, it's raining out. So you sit inside, drink cocoa, listen to your little radio, read a book, and you're like, oh, it's raining, it's nice, you know?
These bulls are good.
This is cool.
Okay, so I was reading that a few people got lost in this area, right?
There was, a couple years ago, a guy went missing. They found his truck with the door open, and it was in the snow in the wintertime. Like, he just took off, like, I don't know if he ran out of gas or something, and we tried to hike it back into town, and it was a total missing 411. It's a neat spot. Summertime when it's real warm, it gets cool at night. This would be a beautiful spot.
So you're not allowed just to camp here?
I honestly don't know.
I mean, who's gonna come?
I think if you're like dry camping, like if you parked where we're parked and you put your pass out and you just went over here with your sleep sack and a MRE or something, no one's gonna know you're here.
Or even with a tent, who's gonna know you're here?
Yeah, especially if it's behind rocks or something.
I would think though, if you park your vehicle, like you said, have a parking permit out there. Don't block a gate. You can either sleep in the car or sleep out here. I think you'd be fine.
Yeah, well, like the we drove in a Subaru wagon that was parked there. You know, he was probably doing exactly that. So
Yeah, because you know, you just calm down, just wait. They'll come to you. You're right.
there's
I always thought, I forget why I heard it, but I'm like, that's a great idea, man. Come around here and cook up tons of bacon. Oh, I got a candy of meat, right? He's not going to come up with some of that.
he's gonna be Sasquatch. What are you doing here? Yeah, you guys cooking bacon?
You want BLTs? You want mayo on there?
I do. Salt and pepper the tomatoes, please.
Well, if you guys are willing to drive, I can take you to the spot to drive. Actually,
Right there. This clearing would be a good spot right here.
right here. Got one tent here. A couple of tents here. What are they going to do? I mean,
Ask you to leave? Yeah.
that's it. I mean, we couldn't build a
There's even in designated campsites like real pay campgrounds with a fire ring, they're not doing fires usually most of the time up here because of the fire danger. It's all just like a propane stove's about all you can have.
But in the Pacific Crest Trail, we put fires all the time. I did it for 2.5.
I think that's a little different than
Then here, right?
because I think, you know, developed campgrounds, people get drunk and throw all their crap in the fire and they don't know to put it out. I think if you're backpacking, you're a lot more conscious of it.
That's true.
Although last year, a couple years ago, there was a fire that was started by a backpacker, turned into a forest fire. Which, I mean, it happens.
You should try the this thing once in a while at night.
Yeah, definitely.
I
Since I've got a YouTube channel, I specialize mostly in film, even if it's in the dark, you know, just because it's a
right.
if it was just me doing investigating for myself, I would probably be more like just having a small, good, expensive but small pair of binoculars, and maybe like a recorder or something. You know, it's different when you're trying to learn it for yourself. Like when I go to Yellowstone or those places, like I don't ever take pictures. I always kind of don't care to. I'm just there to enjoy it at the moment.
Right.
See, I've
Yeah,
always done
there in
it.
the moment.
I've always done it just for me.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to see it, and then like, oh, I should have taken a picture and
And here's a track.
something. Yeah, I was seeing those over there too.
Yeah, that's a little. Well, I'm trying to look for the other paw.
He'd probably be there,
Okay.
there, and there. So he's trotting along. Me?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean,
I'm just curious because you have a t-shirt.
I know he's not. Oh, he has a jacket. I'm in the middle.
I've got 3 layers. I'm fine.
Oh, you have 3 layers?
No, in the car.
Oh,
We're not.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Right now we're moving, so.
yeah, no. I mean, I'm pretty conscious of. In a couple hours, I'd die out here once it started getting cold.
Is that a nest up there?
I think that's one of those burls in a tree up there. Yeah, I think that's just one of those oak burl things, wasp nest burls that grow on them. Interesting broken trees through here, though.
That's from like the last fire, right?
You see the after.
Yeah, there's fire up here.
There's fires up here every year. That might have been Esperanza. That's old. That might have been 10 years ago now.
Yeah, because the fireman died.
Yeah, that was a. Look at this burnout. We can maybe head back to the car and then go lower from where we were. See what we can spot.
Stay along that.